social and emotional well-being and discovery. My name's Nathan Ash, and today I have with me from San Diego Youth Services, Tay Academy, Benj Roth. He also goes by Benjamin or Benjamin so long. No, I'm kidding. Benji, good to see you, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so you and I actually know each other. We actually have known each other for a few years now, haven't we?
Several years, yeah.
Yeah, we used to work together at another agency. I was in leadership there, and you would come by and visit me. And I think you forced me to be your mentor. No, I'm kidding.
There was some pressure.
There was some pressure, yeah. No, I loved every minute of it. You would come into my office and just absorb things, ask questions, and just as you saw the opportunity, and that's what it's all about, especially when you're a youth and you're trying to learn in the systems that we work. Our mentors and looking at leadership and sucking as much information into that and learning from it, that's part of the process.
Absolutely.
So it's a pleasure and an honor. I hope we get to see you more. I know I've been really excited to see your career kind of blossoming and what you're doing out in the field. And I love that we can talk about things happening in the field, and you're actually doing, the outreach for Tay Academy, and you can actually look and find information and bring it back. So let's talk about your role with San Diego Youth Services.
Cool. So at San Diego Youth Services, I work at the Tay Academy, which, for those who don't know, Tay Academy stands for Transitional Aged Youth. And the age ranges that we serve are 14 to 25. Most of our youth are either homeless, at risk for homelessness, they need a safe place to stay during the day, that it's better than the streets. And my role at Tay is a youth support partner, and what I do in my duties during the day is to really support the partners that we have there, the youth that come in anything that they're trying to work on, whether it be building skills for jobs, resumes, applying to college, whatever they need help for. And on top of that, another part of my role is working with extended foster kid youth, extended foster kids.
Yeah.
I prefer youth.
Children, youth, right.
Yeah. And after they've hit 18, the state of California has created a extended foster system where they can still receive services. And my role is to come in and really, during that 18 to 21-year-old phase, try to get them into a more stable environment, whether it be a stable apartment, however we can help during that, and get them into school, help them finish high school if they haven't finished, work on getting a job, whatever resource fairs we know, whatever job fairs we know, and really just help guide and motivate them through the process. So
as far as San Diego Youth Services, you're one of 4 of the Tay Academies, correct?
Correct.
So what are the other Tay Academies here in San Diego County?
So in San Diego County, we have the Tay Academy, which is the one I am at, and that's in Golden Hills.
Golden Hills.
There is another one in South Bay Community Services that's located in Chula Vista, and they also house and have a Tay Academy there.
Okay.
And there are 2 partnerships up in North County with YMCAs, one in Oceanside and one in Escondido.
Okay. Oh, right. I didn't know there were 2 in North County.
Yep.
Wow. That's a huge need up there, so that's fantastic.
Absolutely. If you've ever been to Grape Day Park after dark, they need the services up there.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You get to see all the hot spots that a lot of transitional age youth and homeless youth or unaccompanied youth, depending on the definition, the hot spots. And what's a hot spot for people who don't know for homeless youth and Tay, transitional age youth that are homeless?
A lot of hot spots downtown would be Balboa Park. That is probably one of our largest homeless areas. On top of that, the what is that area called? The sports arena type area.
Right, so like Point Loma area, stuff like that, right.
Very large homelessness population there. And there's a lot in Escondido, major beach cities and subcultures there.
Ocean Beach is one of the largest in the country. There's actually a TV show, I think, on some network that talks about homelessness in Ocean Beach.
Ocean Beach is huge. We have several youth every day who come in, and when we try to find out where they're from or where they're staying, Ocean Beach is probably one of the most heard locations we hear our youth staying at.
Now, one of the terms when we talk about homeless youth, unaccompanied youth, is hidden in plain sight. we hear that phrase a lot. So what does that mean for someone that doesn't understand, how homeless kids function when they're in the streets or they're unaccompanied?
So unaccompanied and hidden in plain sight, depending terminology used.
Right.
So a lot of these kids that come into our Tay Academy, they're normal-looking kids.
Yeah.
They go to high school every day. They come to Tay and do their homework after school. The only difference is they don't have a home to go to after. So they are hidden right in plain sight. They are everywhere. We just don't know.
Right, and a lot of times they're hidden because they don't want to be found. They've been involved in foster care system or the juvenile justice system or some system, because you hear that term a lot. I don't want to go back to the system. Or
there's a system, and also a lot of these youth have experienced some sort of trauma, and they are trying to escape that trauma, and a lot of the times that leads to them becoming homeless on the streets.
So I have a myriad of questions now.
Bring it on.
Kids have educational rights that
Absolutely.
are unaccompanied and homeless, and that's under the McKinney-Vento Act, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, what do you have some of the knowledge based on McKinney-Vento?
To my knowledge, it's very basic on this. Each youth, regardless of ethnicity, sex, race, gender, all that stuff, has entitlement to public education.
Okay.
After that, that's about all I know. That the state will help fund, or they do the lunches.
Right.
That's
affordable
not right.
lunches and right. But they also have the right to go to the school of their choice.
Okay.
Which is pretty significant. But again, a lot of youth don't know their rights, or people that are housing them don't know some of those rights that they have. And that's something I think more and more we have to get some psychoeducational materials on, is understanding some of the navigation outcomes or navigation opportunities for these youth, because if they don't know some of the entitlements that they can use to get, quote, out of the system or to get an education or vocation, etc., they're going to be further behind when, at some point in their life.
And I feel we're on the right track for that. It's slow and it's progressive, but we're on the right track. This year alone, I have seen, on my way over here today in North Park, there are banners for helping foster youth.
Awesome.
On the lampposts, on the radio, I swear, 5 to 10 times a day, I hear talking about supporting and helping foster youth in San Diego and how it's a growing problem.
Right.
It's been a problem for a very long time, but the general public is learning more and more about it and taking more of an interest in it. And I think that now we have the attention, we need to educate.
And I think shows like The Fosters that was on ABC Family helps to, bring this information out to the general public. And that was, it's supposed to be located here in San Diego, although it's shot in Long Beach. But it's good because it gets, a lot of people don't understand what foster care is like and some of the significant harsh realities that these kids face in the system, as they call it.
It's not a picnic.
No. One of the things that people should know is if you're homeless, unaccompanied, or you're facing homelessness, in San Diego School District and many of the surrounding school districts, they have a McKinney-Vento liaison whom you can communicate that will help, coordinate your services, or at least, put you in the right direction, hopefully, as terms of what navigational entitlements may be out there.
Yeah.
I think the other thing, which when we talk about homeless youth, and one of the issues here in San Diego is counting them. I did a project for San Diego State in my master's program, counting youth for the regional task force, and I believe we were at a meeting last week, and the lady, Lorraine, beautiful woman, does a lot of hard work and really wants to make this an initiative to get that number up. She said in 2013 they counted 4?
She did say 4.
4 unsheltered youth. Now that's problematic because, again, we're third in homelessness, second to third for youth in between, and we're 18th in funding. So counting them is very important because it relieves the local taxpayers, because we can get federal dollars and federal support. But when we were at that meeting, the McKinney-Vento liaison said that based on their definition, the McKinney-Vento, which is, what did she say? It was like a page definition or a page and a half?
The McKinney?
Yeah.
I believe they said it was 18 pages.
No, that's the HUD definition.
HUD definition. McKinney, right. I don't know.
It was very short. And she said based on that definition, they have an estimate of up to potentially 22,000 unaccompanied youth in our county, region-wide.
There's a little difference there between 4.
Yeah. And then, but then if we look even at HUD's estimates, their public health epidemiologic, estimates, they estimate about 7,500 to 7,800. That's a huge disparity from 22,000 to about 75, 78,
Absolutely.
thousand, which one of the biggest issues when we talk about homelessness for youth, and especially transitional age youth, is we have these varying definitions. And that becomes very problematic on how we count them and how we serve them. And one of the things, if we look at policy advocacy and reform, is standardizing definitions across these systems so that we become consistent in how we count them and how we serve them. And just one of my things for policy is we always have to advocate for policy, especially for transitional age youth.
And one of the things that I think we really need to work on in San Diego is getting those youth to voice.
Right.
Right now, a lot of the task force, a lot of the coalitions, they have some youth. But if we have in between 7 and 22,000 youth, we need more voice.
Right.
We need them to stand up and tell us what's not happening.
I love what you just said is stand up. I talked with Ron Stark, who is one of the leads that sets up Stand Down for veterans. And it's a homeless veteran initiative downtown for an entire weekend. And I picked his brain. I said, what would it look like if we did a come on out and be seen instead of not, hidden in plain sight, and make a similar event around the count where all the services are out there. And we can make it regional too, so you could do like a San Diego City one, almost based on where your 4 regions are, but make it a day to be counted. Get the services, have the dental service. Like one of the things that sticks out about last week's meeting at TAY was you had 12 homeless youth, and there was a young lady who was talking about what I really need right now is an emergency drop-in center housing, right?
Absolutely.
And she kind of got shut down by some of the professionals, which I felt was I wanted to stand up for, and there were, of the 12 youth, 5 said that was an urgent need, right? And one of the things that came up in that conversation was they had a dental clinic, right? And it was at St. Vincent de Paul's, which is where the adult homeless go.
Yes.
And only 5 showed up. And again, the professionals were like, we've got to do more to get the word out. But what did that young lady say? Because it was really powerful.
I was not actually there, but I can tell you probably what she said because she's told me her story a few times. So there is no emergency shelters for the older spectrum of TAY. Once you hit 18, the lower care facilities and also the ones that house children and teens, you no longer have access to, and the change of the stroke of midnight.
Right.
After that, 18 to 24 years old, you can still get services in San Diego for being a transitional age youth, but there are no shelters designed for those.
Right.
So what this young woman was running into is a lot of these shelters have the older populations.
Right.
And generally the older populations and the younger populations of homeless teens and adults don't mix.
No.
So what she's experiencing is a form of trauma. And she's vocalized that her trauma has deterred her from going to certain homeless shelters that are immediate crisis centers. And without that, she's left to go on the streets.
Correct. And I think one of the problems with that also is she said that, again, she's bullied. She's victimized. She can be sexually victimized by a male. Or the one girl, as she described, she was in a bathroom stall and pretty much got bullied by a lady. And so they tend to avoid the adult facilities. And that's a significant problem when we talk about this. For the layperson out there that doesn't realize, they think, well, they're 18, they're an adult, they should be with the adults. But they tend to be groomed, victimized, and taken advantage of. And so without that support, they end up in the streets and they try to be hidden.
They then become the people that are antagonizing and victimizing. It creates a cycle, unfortunately. Once they hit 18, that's it. It's amazing because they're groomed in the foster care system for so long. And there's limited resources while they're in foster care. Or let me rephrase that. There are so many resources, but they're not known. That once they get to 18, it's over. They are just told, you know what, if they're out of the foster care system, you have nowhere to really stay other than the adult shelters.
Right, which is not helping the situation. And again, if we have 22,000, if we have 7,800, whatever that number is, there's obviously a significant need for that type of facility. So let's talk about some of the services that you offer at the San Diego at the TAY Academy, served under San Diego Youth Services. So you have the 3 regions, but your specific location, what are some of the programs or some of the services or supports that you're offering your partners?
I am so proud and happy to talk about the certain groups and services we have. We have a schedule, which I'm sorry, I forgot, that I'll get to you. The monthly groups we have every single day, 5 days a week, we have several groups being held. We have men's group, we have women's group, where it addresses issues for that gender that they're experiencing. In the men's group, a lot of the time it's talked about healthy relationships. A lot of these kids come from backgrounds in DV where they watch their parents, and we're trying to early intervene because, as the studies will say, someone who watches DV becomes a part of a cycle. Not all the time, but it does happen. On top of men's and women's group, we have educational groups. We have a cooking group where they learn to cook with limited resources for healthy and nutritious meals. We have a wellness group, learning how to live healthy. And that includes a new program that I just started, which is nature and outdoor hikes.
Oh, cool. Getting
them out of downtown San Diego, where it's just buildings and people, and getting them into nature. So last week when we went on we had a youth, once we got to the top of the summit, say, I see pictures like this on the internet, and I never thought I'd be able to see something like this in person.
Wow.
And I was so taken back by that. We have all these amazing things in San Diego to experience, and all these youth know are what's right in front of them, downtown San Diego.
It's funny you say that. I have some homeless TAY that I've been that I interact with, and they had never been to Cowles Mountain. So that's actually on our list of things to do together.
You guys should come join us.
Yeah, again, it blows your mind that, they've been here, or they've lived here, or they've grown up here, or they've traveled here, and not realizing all of the different recreational activities that they can engage in for their social and emotional wellness and discovery, which I think is really important. And I think that's significant that you're not just doing service-based and kind of here's the social entrepreneur, which is a great program, but you're
Absolutely.
going outside of that and talking about things that we have to do for our own self-care and for their self-care.
While we were on the hike, he mentioned this removes me from real life for a while, and we talked a bit more. And it's the complete opposite. It put him in reality. He was able to recognize that being outdoors and walking, he was talking. He was sharing his life story. He was doing things he wasn't doing at the academy. And it's just a progressive new stance on, as I'm not a therapist, I can't practice therapy, but getting them to open up and talk and just express themselves. And it gave him that free environment. He felt like it wasn't a constricted place where he was stuck. It was this open greatness that anything can happen. And on top of that, so we have the hiking, the wellness, the healthy eating, men's, women's, let's see what else we have. Exercise classes. Several times a week we have a woman come in who teaches Zumba, and the kids absolutely love it. We crank the music super loud to the point where we don't get noise complaints, and just let the kids have a blast.
That's awesome.
On top of that, Oscar, who was
Oscar Maldonado.
Yes, who was at TAY Academy and talked here at Thrivecast a while back, started the Insanity program for getting into shape.
That's cool. That's really cool. How's it been with the loss of Oscar?
You can definitely get the sense that there's a mourning around the building. A lot of the youth really connected to him, really looked up to him, saw him as, he's been where I've been and he's where I can go. And it's just really unfortunate that we lost him and that he's no longer with us at TAY. Yeah,
it's a bummer. And it really, I think the reality is all of us, he left something in our hearts that we feel like we have to carry on for him. And I think that's what we're doing. I felt like that's what we were doing last Thursday when you, myself, Priscilla was there, and we're trying to really be their authentic voice, just like he was. I actually am in training to be a therapist. I've been a drug and alcohol counselor, and I will tell you that I have always believed that therapy shouldn't be in an office. It should actually be outdoors. It should be in the home. We should be getting out into the environments. But some of the most impactful changes that I've seen individuals receiving services make in their own self-determination and in their own resiliency development happen when we were out hiking or we were walking or we were outside.
Absolutely. Nobody wants to go into the therapist's office where they lay down on a couch and you don't look at the therapist and they're just sitting there writing notes. That's ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, that may have worked in the 20s and 30s, but today, no, we need to be outside. We need to be engaging them.
Not only that, with a lot of the youth that I've worked with, if they're in need, and I've always said, you can figure out a way from your phone to find me. And I can counsel from my phone sometimes when they're in crisis, when they have no one else to call, because I've always said I will always try to be there for you if I can. There's realities that happen in life, but I have found also with this generation that sometimes utilizing the technology can be the quickest means to having an intervention, or just planting those, what was your mantra again? What do kind of getting them focused again?
Yeah.
We can't do that if you wait for your appointment, or, in that 15-minute session sometimes.
Or my favorite is, if you don't make it, we're going to charge you.
Right. Which if they have to take 5 buses to get there, maybe, that's a whole other issue. It's just the logistics sometimes to coming there. And I think it behooves us as system professionals, just like you are a family support or a youth support professional, and we have partner professionals, right? We are all professionals in that. Even if you're in receiving services, you are a professional because you're in it. It's part of your life.
They're partners.
Right, and that's what you guys refer to them at the Tay Academy.
Absolutely. At Tay, we feel every one of our youth that come in, they're not a client, they're not a patient, they're a partner. They're there to help us build, maintain, and improve Tay.
Right.
So it's not one-sided. Therapy, counseling, getting services met and needs addressed, that's not a client, that's not a patient, that's someone,
consumer, right?
That's not, no, they're there because they want to be there,
and because we want to talk about partnerships, making this a collaborative process. I would love to see the day when therapy is not only kind of individual therapy, but then we actually hook up with the peer support specialist, that we kind of groom them to be the next peer support specialist as they're hopefully gaining access out of the system into self-determination.
So not only do we need the professionals, but we need the community engaged. We need the community to come in and address that there are issues within the community, right, and how we can improve them. And homelessness, for example, that's our biggest topic right now.
Right.
If the community came together and worked together, things would be accomplished so much faster. But unfortunately, that's not always how it works. So one of the things that Tay really is proud of is not only do we have professionals that we consult with and collaborate with, not only do we have the youth, we have the community, we have other partners such as South Bay Community Services, where we all work together to find out what needs we don't know about and to make sure that we stay on top of it, that we can handle anything that comes our way, and that every youth that steps through our door has their needs to the best of our ability being met.
Right. And one of the things we do here at the Family Youth Roundtable is we provide those trainings, we provide the coaching, we provide those types of services to the support partners so that they have a voice and a collective means in which to discuss, like supervision. So we do our countywide supervision here on the first Friday of the month for people to come in from their agencies and talk about what are the struggles, not only being a partner, but within an organization sometimes you're not always heard, or you're not part of the decision-making process, and making sure how do you advocate for yourself and for the population that you're trying to advocate for. And I think that's really important. I think the more that we start to collaborate as a community, not only, like you said, the community at large, but more within our system of care, and looking at how can we, our ultimate job should be to work ourselves out of a job, which will never happen, but if that's our focus, it's more likely, right? So one of the things that I think is really innovative is, you're doing a social entrepreneurship or enterprise model, the SEI model.
Yes, we are. So we have, as I mentioned earlier, several partnerships within the community, and one of those is with Harmonium. And what Harmonium is doing right now is coming in and helping our youth create their own businesses and product. So when they come in, they do a several-week course. I believe it's 16. I could be mistaken.
I think it's 11, I thought.
11.
Okay, but it doesn't matter. Right. On average, they vary, so.
So they stay with them for several weeks, and they meet quite often, and they help prepare them and plan them and teach them basic business model. And then they give them the resources to help start their product. We have one person who created these really cool diaper bags, because a lot of our TAE are also parents themselves. Right. And it was just really cool watching these guys, get this self-confidence, like, hey, I did this. Mm-hmm. I made this. And at the end of the program, Harmonium currently has, I believe it's somewhere between 20 and 30 positions for youth. Wow. To come on board after the program is over, depending on how well they've done. And so far, all these kids are doing such a fantastic job on each project that they're making.
Gotcha. So that is actually a consensus theory, right? It's based on consensus, for the kind of consensus organizing. If you're Latino, the model is actually a little bit different, and it's called the triangular solidarity model. And what that does, and we always want to look at culture too, because it's underserved in our community, Latino, Hispanic, Chicano, right? So in that model, it's a variation of the SEI model, but what they incorporate there in the Latino country, especially specifically Mexico, this is very prominent, the triangular solidarity model, which is again part of this social, a variation of the social enterprise model, is it integrates the public, so non-governmental organizations such as like a San Diego Youth Services, the nonprofit sector, and then the for-profit corporations. And what's significant about that is when you talk about community actually starting to get involved and roll up their sleeves and help with this problem, it would be advantageous to get business leaders to reach out to these types of programs and say, you know what, we might get an intern here, or maybe we could fill a position there. The more that we can do that, we have upward mobility out of the system, because one of the most important things is having being gainfully employed, not underemployed as most of our TAE youth are, but actually gainfully employed.
Working 10 hours a week, that's not going to get you an apartment.
No.
We need to help these kids find stable jobs.
Right.
And if we can find them benefits, that would be so much better.
Right. Because then we're not paying for them through the system. They're actually contributing. And again, the more that we can get off the streets and get access to that, that's a win-win for everyone.
And that's also to stay as politically vague and biased as possible. Obamacare is helping so much with when these kids are getting employed. They have to get health insurance through the company now.
Right.
The companies are mandated to do that. So we can get them above part-time jobs. They get benefits, and that is huge. These kids, a lot of them haven't seen a dentist in years.
Correct. Actually, here at the Family Youth Roundtable, we have two transitional age youth that have been homeless and recently now are getting stable. They've applied for school. They're going to be doing Covered California for us. And they're so excited about it. I was talking to them yesterday, and they're like, what is this going to look like? And da-da-da-da. But what Dice said, and he's been on the show several times, his teeth are really bad, in really bad shape. And he said, I didn't know that I had access to care. And now he's like, I wish I would have taken advantage of it early, so I would have had some prevention and early intervention with my dental work, so that I'm not in the situation I'm in now.
And there are other programs, or the dental programs, that can help. But getting access to those, it's very lengthy, very difficult for them if they're trying to access it on their own. At TAE, we can help them navigate and guide them through it. But if they were able to get the dental insurance, it would be, they could blow through the process, no problem.
One of the things I've been looking at meta-analysis for the SEI model, and one of the things that I found for the social enterprise model is it has substantially or statistically significant better outcomes than our traditional outreach or peer support or psychoeducational, because it adds the business component, it adds the educational component, it teaches them how to brand themselves and their skills.
Which I think is absolutely what we need. We have one youth who's mentioned to me, I hear people,
No.
Sorry. One youth mentioned to me that he's been through the system, and he could be lined up for a youth support partner position at some point, no problem. He's got experience. He's very professional. He's very driven. But he was telling me, that's not what I want to do. I want to own my own business.
Right.
And there's not a lot out there for that. That's why I love that Harmonium's coming in and giving these kids that opportunity. Yeah. And not only that, but getting them enrolled in school. Going to college for them is huge.
Yeah, I think we need educational navigators to help them understand what access they may have to certain benefits or reductions in student loans, scholarships, etc.
Well, come 2015, that'll be even better with the new announcement.
Yeah.
But what these youth also struggle with is, grants, scholarships, funding, FAFSA, and we help guide them through that. We make sure that they understand what they're going through. Because if I was looking at FAFSA for the first time, I'd have no idea what I'm looking at. Like, What is all this? So we help guide them through that. And on top of that, once they actually are ready, we'll drive them down to the college, whatever they chose, and we'll help them through the entire process. We'll stand there next to him.
That's
or
fantastic.
her.
And that's important because I think one of the issues with all services in every state, any county, nationally, is that we tell people where to go. We say, this is what you need to do, but then we don't ensure or help them because sometimes there's a lot of fear walking through that door, or they don't know what questions to ask, or the stigma that they feel as they go through there. Having someone, a partner, having the support partner or the professional partners helps so much because it's just having that person next to you to say you can do it. Help with that self-efficacy.
It's in my job title. I'm there to support.
That's awesome. One of the things that you and I have talked about just privately is how youth travel, Tay youth travel. And what I found was they don't hitchhike anymore. They'll either use friends' cars or they use the rail system.
Yes.
And when I told you that, you were like, what I find to be one of your strengths is you took that data and then you turned it into advocacy outreach. So what did you find once you started going out there and looking at
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere. And you identified how many different hot spots through the rail systems that they use.
Haven't been to the rail system yet, but from the youth that walk through our doors, there's a certain way that they'll announce subtly that they've been through rail hopping, that they were part of that culture. And each one just has this amazing story to tell.
They always do, yeah.
Something I have never been through. And whenever they come in, we try to, reacquaint them. Because it's rail hopping culture is very different than, what the normal person goes through. So when they come in, we try to see what their needs are. Some of them, they aren't in San Diego to try to find housing. They're there just to stop by until the next train goes out. And so we try to help the ones that are there, even temporarily. Whoever has a need being met, our doors are open. We really pride ourselves on being a one-stop shop. And if we can't find it or we don't offer it, we're going to make sure that we can somewhere else, and we'll help transport you, we'll help guide you, we'll make sure that you can.
One of the things that you'll see with kids that are rail hopping is bandanas, like a black bandana.
Yep.
So what's the significance of the bandana?
I'm still learning. I've heard several different things. So
what have you heard? Because it's good. Let's just talk about what you're hearing.
So covers the face so you don't get bugs in your mouth.
Correct. Okay.
Symbol and status. Just
it shows that you're safe.
Yeah.
That you're part of that culture.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a friend. If you've never met and you see the bandana,
you think gangs.
Unfortunately.
But it's really a safety mechanism.
Yeah.
To know that you're another rail kid. You're another kid that you shouldn't fear them.
I can come up to you and I can talk to you.
Right.
And yeah, gangs absolutely have given a bad impression of bandanas.
I think, yeah, they really have, unfortunately. But one of the things we have to look at is historically, why are the rails significant to these kids, right? Well, one of the reasons they're significant is because back in the 1850s, we used to put our orphanages on trains. there's great documentaries on the orphan trains if you ever get a chance. There's a history of us putting kids on trains and shipping them around, right? And so it's almost apropos that these kids are actually out still on the trains, traveling, using the hobo code, as they call it, to know what's safe, what's not, and how to travel following the shipping containers.
Little difference that we have today is smartphones.
Smartphones, yeah.
They're huge. Growing up, or even when I was a young teenager, I didn't know a lot about homelessness. I was like, it must suck not to be able to use a phone, but they all have phones.
Okay, so when I was on the streets, I remember being in Chicago, and we would go to these old blighted out buildings. And this is like way before cell phones, so I'm going to date myself. But they had these things at Radio Shack that you could go and you could put it up to the payphone, and it was like a fax machine, and it would trick the phone into calls. So when I was touring, like if we would go to like a festival or go to, follow the Grateful Dead, which was a lot of what I was doing, I would sell phone calls to people and to other traveling kids. So that way they could call. I'd be like, call mom for $5, and then I would use my little device. And that's how we would communicate, actually.
You were a peddler, $5 for one call?
Hey, whatever it took, because that's how you made money, But it was really important to have that as we were traveling, because we didn't have cell phones. I mean, cell phones were like these big, ginormous things at that point.
Yeah.
But now kids are smart. Like almost all of them have iPhones, I've noticed. Yeah. Because they get the free iMessaging.
Free iMessaging. They can now do free voice calls through the internet if it's iPhone to iPhone. I'm still figuring that whole thing out. But they have a communication network that the public doesn't see. It's on the internet, and they access it, and it's there, but most of the public doesn't see it. And they know the safe places to go, the houses that will take them in for a night, the fruit trees that they can take some food from.
Yeah, there's an app that tells them where to pick fruit, in somebody's yard, etc. They use Find a Friend to know where the clusters are at and where their friends are at and how to find them. So they're utilizing technology to know where safe places are at, but again, they're hidden as they're doing it.
And something just came to mind. So on my way over here, there was 3 youth I saw panhandling on a street corner. And the stigma of panhandling is most people think that person's going to automatically turn around and go buy drugs.
Right.
I have several youth that when they panhandle, it's to pay their phone bill. It's not to, buy weed, meth, heroin, alcohol, whatever your drug of choice is. It's to go pay for their cell phone so they can stay communicated and connected to people.
Right. I was recently reading an epidemiological study of 752 homeless youth living on the streets. I believe it was in Los Angeles, yes. And of those surveyed, 73% panhandled, 46% sex and prostitution for money, 34% some other type of employment, so like manpower, working, odd jobs, 32% drug involved. So that's a lot lower than what we would think, right? And this is just one specific study, and then 29 actually steal. It reported that's how they get their needs met. But again, that is pretty significant.
And for the theft, so a lot of times when our youth come in, they're used to stealing for what they want. So they'll try to sneakily, kind of like, I don't think that's a word. Sneakily.
We'll make it up.
It's created, it's done.
Right.
It's a thing now.
Sneakalicious.
They'll try to take like a can of food, and we don't care.
No.
Like, just, hey, address us, or let it be known. This food is here for you guys, and they're not used to that. They're not used to people who are there for them. So when they walk into a grocery store, I mean, this is my own personal experience. When I walk into a grocery store, my first thought is, how much stuff can I fit in my pockets right now? Today is, do I have enough time to get everything that I need?
Yeah.
Am I going to pay with cash or credit card today?
Right. But it's a different mindset.
It is, and we try to get them there. Whether it be small little gestures like, hey, do you need any food on your way out today? Because a lot of these kids, they don't know how they're going to eat that night. They may panhandle to try to get some food, but you know what? If we can kind of deter them needing to do anything else, we don't want to create a sense of only needing to rely on us, but we do want to create this sense of accountability and responsibility for them.
Correct. And that's important. And again, I remember going to the stores, and it was always somebody would get the clerks, keep their attention while you were working the store. You know, and those are the things you did to eat some
Yeah.
days. Other days you made enough money, you didn't have to do that.
If they had the money, I don't think they'd steal. A lot of the times when everything on that list, that's because a need is not being met. Whether it be food, whether it be housing, whether it be a job, education, it's all because a need is not being met.
We met a really dynamic gentleman last Thursday at Tay Academy who is part of SNAP and EBT. CalFresh. And this is another thing. These youth are eligible.
They don't know it.
And they don't know it. And that can be healthy food that they can have and have access to, which I think is pretty significant.
And this is not a plug, but with CalFresh now, almost any agency can do it. If you request from CalFresh to come out and be trained to do their procedure, you can do the application, I guess it's called. Yeah, it'd be an application right then and there and get approved for EBT. There's only several things that exclude a youth from being able to acquire an EBT card.
And again, they don't know this. And now they can go to farmers market and get healthy food. I mean, this is a whole other thing that we need that can really help this population is healthy food and nutrition.
It's so great that we are now accepting it at farmers markets because I think it was 5 years ago, when I was first getting into the field, I found out that EBT is now accepted at Jack in the Box. Like,
Right.
Are you kidding?
Oh, don't even get me started about that. And I was at a meeting a year ago where they were like, hey, we've got all these restaurants now that are going to be accepting EBT. And like the first 17 were like Burger Kings. And I thought, well, why not even, I mean, if you're going to look at fast food, at least go to Subway because most of these kids don't have a freezer or somewhere to store it. So at least with Subway, they can like, you know, it's cold. They can get a cold cut sub. I'm thinking, why aren't the first 17 some sort of like sub shop?
Chipotle.
Right. But they were all like Burger Kings and in Jack in the Box. And again, nothing against those organizations, but because I don't, I don't want them to come. But it's important that they have healthy food and nutrition because brain development, health and well-being is directly related to their nutrition.
The primary three: sleep, exercise, and nutrition.
Right.
If you get all three, statistically, and from all the research, you are going to have better outcomes in life.
Without a doubt. Speaking of research and data and evidence,
I know that's your trigger word. Let's hear it.
I love data and research. The age 25, 26, we've expanded what it means for a youth to get extended services. It used to be 18, you're out, then 21, and even in some states it still remained 18. Why, in your mind, is it significant that we've extended the age for these youth?
Preparation.
Okay.
I believe that throughout the system, they've had limited preparedness. Grammar is hard today.
You're on the radio. That's how it works.
There we go. So slowly coming up through the system, they're taught bits and pieces. Usually because for me, it was I never went to school. I just ditched all the time. Could be the same for other cases. Some because they had to stay home and take care of their parents' other sibling. That makes sense. I'm just on a roll right now.
That's all right. No, but it's significant because your brain is still developing. That's in my mind. That's why it's significant that we've expanded it.
So we tell them that at 18 you're an adult, but realistically, they're not an adult till their brain's fully developed in my mind.
Right.
So, and that happens at 25.
Right, 25 to 26. Right.
Yeah, around that range. And during that time, and everything before it, they're held at the same standard that someone who's already done growing is going through. So with the 25-26, I think that is currently a great expansion in San Diego right now. I don't know if that's nationwide or are we just...
No, it's becoming nationwide, yeah.
Right.
So, and a lot of that's because of the Affordable Care Act and some of the new dollars, and also the expansion of the Social Security Act, Section 71. I used to know this.
Of course
1915 C through J, which has been expanded. When we talk about it's 2176 subsection 1915. C through J has been expanded for this population. So we look at policy; those are the subsection numbers, right?
Expansion.
I wrote a paper on it, so that's why I know.
No big deal.
Yeah, but it's important because when you talked about nutrition, when we talk about education, when we talk about vocation, right? If we just kick them out at 18 and 21, they're going to experience trauma as their brain is continuing to develop, and that is not good. There's a societal cost for that long term. And we pay for it.
And in the most simplistic term, so let's say we have a 20-year-old who's experiencing trauma. So through the new research coming out, or actually not even that new, through the new education that's being really emphasized in San Diego County on being trauma-informed care, when a trauma happens, the development of the brain kind of slows down a little in terms of what they take in.
Right.
So while they're experiencing trauma, it's kind of just like a black spot in their development of learning or things they could be learning. And during that time, it's not addressed that, so let's say someone's 20, I keep changing the ages.
Doesn't matter.
Someone's
They're
20.
in that range, yeah.
They've been experiencing trauma from 16 to 20. There's not a lot of new information coming in between 16 and 20 because they're in the amygdala lizard brain where I either need to fight, flight, or freeze.
Right.
Not how do I eat and cook healthy meals? How do I take care of myself? How do I do what is best for me on a broad scale rather than what needs do I have today, which is I need to eat, I need to sleep, I need a safe place to be, and if I can, take a shower somewhere.
Those are the lower, that's, Maslow's lower level, right?
Yeah.
The more that we can get them access to education, vocation, building that self-efficacy and actualization is how we can get them up and out of the system. But I really think there's two things here. One, for those that want to help others, they can be the peer partner, they can be a youth partner, a youth support partner, a family partner, a family support partner. All of those are professionals to help others out. But then there's the other ones that, again, don't want to, they want it completely out. They want to be, an entrepreneur. They want to have their own business. They want to have whatever it takes. So I think there should be two pathways. Under the Mental Health Services Act, we pay for school. Prop 63, where they can get the mental health stipend to go to school to be a social worker or to get their education paid for. But there's those that don't want to do that. So we should offer two tracks.
Yeah, it's absolutely detrimental to pigeonhole an entire population into something else. Like, why? Why do that to an entire population? It makes almost no sense. I mean, yes, it's beneficial for the ones who do want to go through it, but there needs to be more broader scale spectrums of resources for them in regards to school, and we're getting there slowly, but needs to go a little quicker because right now, if we have 22,000 homeless on the streets,
right, depending on the definition,
right. That's huge,
right. And really, again, I think it's probably overestimated, but again, we're also underestimated. So somewhere in the middle is this number, and it's so important that we start to find that number.
And for all we know, it could actually be above that too.
It could be, and that's a whole other issue to be concerned about, because then we have a much bigger animal, so to speak, to wrestle and deal with. But I think at the end of the day, there are a number of agencies that are really working to solve this or to come up with solutions, to come up with interventions. San Diego Services, Family Youth Roundtable, Harmonium,
South Bay,
the YMCA up north. This is important, but the more that we collaborate and create unified hubs, because there is a fragmentation a lot because of grant funding and the way in which we fight for dollars. And whether it's this county or any county that runs off of block grants, we become kind of slave to the block grant, not to collaboration as much as we would like to.
Well, with nonprofits, I can only speak from my perspective on this, but it shouldn't be we are against each other. Like, oh, we need more youth at our facility. No, it should be, how can we help support you with whatever you need? There needs to be a partnership where currently we have with South Bay. Like, if they're closer to that area, then we're not going to be like, no, you need to stay here because we need that number for our statistics for the county. It's no. I think it'd be better and easier, or better, it's up to them. It could be easier for you to access resources for something that's closer to home.
Right. I agree. And again, if we say we have to keep numbers, right, then in a way, those clients become a commodity.
Yeah.
They don't become a human. They're degraded and they're dehumanized in a way, because it's like, well, we have to count them, right? But the reality of the way that any governmental funding is right now is you have to look at outcomes and numbers.
Yeah.
and who you serve. Again, I think if we collaborate more, there's a lot out there for us to benefit from. Most importantly is to get as many people as we can to be self-determined, to build their self-efficacy and resiliency, and get out of the system. And for some of these kids, they may be the first one in their generational families to actually break the cycle of poverty or break the cycle of foster care or
it's
break
huge.
You know, I mean, Donna Marto here at the Family Youth Roundtable, I mean, there's a lot of generational stuff, and a lot of families have this, you know, where there's a system that keeps going around, right? And then you break that system. Once you break it, you open up the door for every generation behind that's coming up to break that cycle.
Yeah.
And this is significant for these kids, because if you hear their stories, a lot of times what you hear isn't really the best thing. It's not what you want to hear.
And no, a lot of us in this field, I'd hope, aren't here, you know, because of the happy stories we're going to hear. It's because they have those stories that we can hopefully alleviate some of it. So
I'm going to ask you two things. Tell me about your new team that's kind of developing at San Diego Service, isn't it, Tay?
Super excited to be working with them. So we have 6 youth support partners, and I've already described what the youth support partner does, where they're support. Just anything you need, we're going to support you in it.
Right.
We have a new housing specialist, and she is awesome. She specializes in trying to find low-income housing or any sort of housing for a youth, depending on where they're at. If they need immediate housing, she'll help them find that. But that one doesn't happen. There's a lot of different places that can help with immediate. What we also have is temporary shelter housing.
Okay.
And what that is we, let's say someone finally found placement through our housing specialist for a new low-income housing, but they're waitlisted for 2 months. Where are they going to go for those 2 months? Tay offers several apartments to these youth where if they qualify, they can stay at our housing for a couple of weeks with an exit plan of eventually moving into something bigger and better. So on top of our housing specialists, we also have connection coaches. And
awesome.
Our connection coaches are all master level coaches who are there to develop plans. If this were any other facility, they'd be clinicians, but at our facility, they're there as coaches. They develop we call it a vision plan. It's very similar to a treatment plan. So what they want to work on, what their goals are, what their ambitions are, they do the assessments, and they also help in supporting also our housing specialists. We're all supporting them any way that we can. And then we also have Ryan McDade, who is our program manager, who's
really awesome. He's dynamic.
He keeps the ship afloat, and he's probably one of the better, more predominant figures I've seen in this community that I really love to see where he goes.
Yeah, he's a really awesome guy. And then you have another big addition. Smears.
Oh, yes. And our new site coordinator, who just came on last week, who's has a background in education that is phenomenal, and really looking forward to the work he's going to do at Tay.
And then the other thing you have going on is what's your specific role?
My specific role at Tay is one of the youth support partners. I, along with I think I mentioned this. If not, oh well. No. So day to day, as the youth start funneling in through our doors, I try to see where everyone's at, see what's going on, if they're hungry, if they want to go make some food, if they need help cooking anything. If there's people working on trying to find a job, we help them. I'll sit down and work with them on a resume to the best of my ability, because nobody's perfect at resumes. And on top of that, I do the extended foster care, where I go out into the community and meet them where they are. A lot of them are still struggling to get into the door, right, I guess, per se. And we go out and meet them, and we slowly start bringing them in. We start showing them that there are safe places to go, and I will, bring them to City College, help them apply there, help with financial aid. I'll bring them to job fairs or job interviews. I'll sit down for an hour or two and work with them on applying to jobs, and eventually, it's definitely a process. We try to work on getting them housing, and that's either through our housing specialist or through any resources that they are already progressing through, because the foster care system does help support trying to get them stable places.
Without a doubt. And so in closing, I want you to first, how did you come to this?
How did I come to this?
What was your journey? I usually start the interviews with that question, but I thought we would close a little bit with that.
All right. So my background experience personally was I was a member of the AB 2726 club. And what the AB 2726 program in the state of California was for the severely emotionally disturbed, as they called it.
Mm-hmm.
A wonderful
SMD,
language.
Right.
So yeah, I was 16 and I was told I'm severely emotionally disturbed. Like,
Thank
really?
you.
Thanks. Yeah. Let's propagate that some more. So from a early on age, struggled with mental health issues starting at like 6. Started therapy very young age, and then just progressed more. Started medications. I've seen more therapists than I can count on any part, and more therapy, more medication. It's not working. We have to do something more, and I. Borderline personality disorder.
Stigma.
And
Labels.
Huge stigma. So from someone who, meets me today, I don't act like someone with borderline personality or who suffers from borderline personality disorder. I became someone who suffered from borderline personality disorder because they constantly told me, oh, you have borderline personality disorder. And so many years of drugs being prescribed to me, right, along with trying to self-medicate through not the most legal of drugs. And it was when I was 17, the county was finally kind of sick of paying for my services, so they pretty much told my family, hey, he's either out, in which case my risk of homelessness increases drastic, or ship him out.
Ship him out. Awesome.
Yeah, so I was 17 and I got the option, okay, you're going to go to this final program. If it doesn't work, you're getting sent out of state.
Oh my goodness.
And I entered the program, no idea really what to expect, and it was an intensive day treatment where most kids go to school 5 days a week. They have their weekends off, and they just, relax and see their friends at school. This school was a lockdown school. So when you walked through the gate, you got searched. You got patted down. You emptied your pockets, took off your shoes, lifted up your tongue, made sure you had nothing on you. And so 4 hours of the day, I was in groups. Another hour of the day, I was in individual therapy, and then the rest of the day, I was in normal classes.
Oh my goodness, man.
So I did that for about a year, and it was there that I met the therapist, John Laidlaw, who, when I first came in, and he read my chart, he was telling me many years later when I saw him, when he read my chart, he was expecting this like horrible kid, like been a part of the system for ages. I think it said I was high risk and conducted in criminal behavior with like high risk for setting fires and things like that. Oh my
goodness! Because of what they were reading in paper.
Yeah, and so when he met me, he was kind of like taken back, like, no, this is wrong. And he actually gave me a chance. Instead of telling me like, hey, you have all these disorders and medications that you have to take, instead he just sat there, and a lot of times it was just joking around, like it wasn't real therapy. Like he would tell me stories of when he lived in Canada and seeing like drunk bears who ate fermented apples after the winter.
That's insane.
So it was just, I was really taken back by it. And as I was there throughout the year, I started to realize the life that I was living would eventually end in me not making it past 18. I'd either die from killing myself or from a drug overdose or something like that. And I finally started to pick it up and get my life together and mend some relationships, which took a lot longer than a year, with parents, friends, everyone. And didn't really have a lot going on after that. I got my GED. I didn't want to go to school or college. I didn't want to really do anything. I was just in this stuck zone, and I think it was my mom.
Who works at Santa Youth Services. Is awesome. She's amazing. I've worked with her at another agency too.
For that plug, was like, hey, you've been a part of the system. Would you be interested in? Because I always had kind of this interest to work with people as well.
Mm-hmm.
Go check out this event at Family Youth Roundtable.
That's awesome.
Back in 2009.
That's awesome. So you came here to Family Youth Roundtable
to do the Pathways to Partnership program.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So it was a 40-hour 1-week course on becoming a youth support partner. I was very early on, very naive, very arrogant too. And
you have a lot more humility now. I know that.
Thank you. A little different from when we first met.
But I don't care. I applauded you for that because I could tell you wanted to learn. I want to have you back a lot because you're important to me in my life. And you've been somebody that's, I don't know, I know your career is going to get bigger and better, and you're going to change lives and break stigma. In closing, one of the things that you and I talked about this past weekend is you have a term for labels, and I think that's important to close with.
So one of the things I'm a huge believer in, and I want to get the message out there as much as possible, is the destigmatization of diagnoses. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is with what I was talking about along the lines of the borderline personality disorder, whereas someone going through the system who is told repeatedly on a day-to-day basis that they are something, how do you ever expect them to become anything other than what they are told that they are? Someone who suffers from bipolar disorder, if you constantly tell them, oh yeah, you're gonna freak out every couple weeks, well, okay, that's great, thanks for letting me know.
Right.
Instead, hey, we can learn to manage it, we can work together, we can talk about when that does happen.
Having a safety plan, having things in place where those triggers, and making sure you bring in your social support network. Yes,
and that's a lot of what we try to do at TAY, which is safety planning. A lot of these kids come in and they have a diagnosis rap sheet that would go on for days. Some of them, they may be suffering from the diagnosis that they have, but others, and a majority of them, they just need support. They need their needs to be met. So I guess in closing on that, diagnoses could be either they're not the answer.
Correct.
They're not the explanation. They're the understanding.
That's very well put. Very well put. Honor and a pleasure to have you. I expect to do more work with you.
Absolutely.
And most importantly, the more people that we have, as I call it, in the trenches and on the ground making change, the more that the system will, have less people that are in need, and that we can create system change.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we will. And most importantly, thank you for coming on Thrivecast. It's been a pleasure, man.
Loved it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man. All right, cool.